Put a finger down if you go way too long in between wash days, and you can't really blame it on quarantine because it really just is who you are as a person. And every single time you do it, you get a little bit afraid of going too far and that your curls won't come back. Just me? I know it's not. My name is Jannelle, and in today's video, we are going to talk about bonds. Bonds, why they're important, what you need to know about them, what causes damage to them, how to rebuild them. We're gonna briefly touch on the difference between a protein treatment and a bond treatment. We're gonna talk bond builders, and we will be comparing two, literally side by side, on my head. Within the comparison of the bond builders, I'm going to show you each side without stylers and then with stylers so that we really can get a full perspective of each product. If it's your first time here, I hope you stick around by slamming that subscribe button, turn those notifications on. We talk all things curly, wavy, and then some. Before we jump into talking everything bonds, I want to thank Curlsmith for asking me to partner with them on this launch of this line and for sponsoring today's video. And while they are helping bring this video to you, supporting this channel, the facts are real and the opinions are always mine. All right, let's jump in. To set up the foundation for talking about bonds, one of the first things that's really important to note is your cuticle is actually what determines your hair shape. The rounder, the more straight your hair is, and the more oval, tighter, the curlier your hair will be. So think of your cuticle as a foundation to a home. That's going to matter in a second. So then you come on to your hair. Well, your hair is made up of three parts, but we're only gonna focus on the two, which is the cortex and the cuticle. So the cuticle is the outermost layer of the hair, and the cortex is essentially where all the meat and all the very important things are happening inside. The cortex of the hair holds all the amino acid chains and the bonds that hold all those chains together. So coming back to the house analogies, the type of foundation that you have when building a home, for example, is generally determined by your environment. We're just going to say our environment is our genetics. So our genetics determined what kind of foundation we were going to have. So then we're going to think of our hairs, the cortex and the cuticle that make them up, as the house itself. The rooftop provides protection to the house underneath. So the roof is similar to the hair's cuticle. A lot of homes are built with a wood framing. Think of the wood framing of the home as the amino acid chains. Now, think of those joints where the framing meets together and it's locked in place as the bonds. Having a bunch of proteins floating around, having a bunch of wood framing laying on the ground is wonderful if you don't actually have the joints that lock it and hold it into place so that it maintains structure. It's no good. Just as if you don't have those proteins or the wood framing, the joints mean nothing. Both are needed to maintain its structure. If you have a built home and you pull out some amino acids, a wall might fall. The overall structure of the home may still be in place. If you start to remove joints, your whole structure might fall. Very similar, the roof. The roof is protecting the structure of the home from excess environmental factors. And this is no different from the cuticle of your hair. So the cuticle of your hair, similarly to shingles on a roof, is always going to let in some water, some protein, but as it gets damaged over time by outside environmental factors, it starts to let in more than it needs, and that begins a deterioration to the cortex of the hair. Similarly, as homes can be repaired from the inside out, so can your hair. Okay, so we talked about these protein structures that are held together by bonds, but what are the bonds? Because it is not just one type. There are actually three types of bonds. So the first type are hydrogen bonds. Hydrogen bonds are the weaker of the three bonds, but there's more of them, so they have a very big impact on the overall shape of the hair. Hydrogen bonds actually disconnect with water and heat and then reform as they either cool or as water is removed. Every time you get your hair wet and it stretches out, loses its shape, that is the hydrogen bonds disconnecting, and then as it dries and your hair comes back into shape, that is the hydrogen bonds reconnecting. Hydrogen bonds are damaged by excess heat or excess moisture. Next up is salt bonds or ionic bonds, and these can be damaged by a sudden pH imbalance. And then last up is disulfide bonds. And disulfide bonds generally take color treatments, bleach treatments, firming, relaxers to be broken. However, they can be broken over time by things like continuous excessive heat and continuous rough handling. These bonds are extremely important for a multitude of reasons, but especially because they provide the strength and the elasticity to your hair. We've discussed the hair structure, what the bonds are, and how to break them. Now let's talk about repairing them. So really, there's kind of only two ways to handle broken bonds, and that is to cut and get rid of the damage, or play the bond building game. I personally like a mix of both, but lean towards building bonds. So let's talk bond builders. If you have been with me for a while, you know I have used and loved this product for years. I've been using it for almost 4 years. I've reviewed it on this channel. I've sworn by it. I love it. So Olaplex number 3 take home claims that it goes in and multiplies bonds, ultimately resulting in stronger hair. Olaplex has one patented active ingredient, bisaminopropyl diglycol dimaleate. And this active is claimed to target the disulfide bonds specifically. Because the active ingredient is patented, this is the only bond builder that has that ingredient. For a long time, it was one of the only bond builders that I was at least aware of on the market. But now people are getting inventive, and Curlsmith said, "What up, Olaplex? We got our own bond builder." So the new Curlsmith Bond Curl Rehab Salve, reading from my notes so I don't screw nothing up, contains a powerful blend of superfoods and fortifying active ingredients that targets all 3 of the bonds in the hair to repair, rebuild, and restore fiber strength. And it also provides protection against further damage. Contains 3 actives that target all 3 of the bonds in our hair. So the first active, Fiber Enhance, which is a patented complex which targets hydrogen and ionic, which are salt bonds. Tego Cosmo Complex, which targets electrostatic, which are also salt bonds. And they have the Pro-Cutagen Bond Complex, which is derived from chia seeds, and it targets disulfide bonds while building an active biofilm. The biofilm is what I specifically found interesting, prevents chemical damage that breaks down the protein bonds of the hair that make it porous, weakened, and more prone to breakage. So they explain that this biofilm works like a scaffolding. If you've ever seen a building or a house being built or repaired, the scaffolding are the structures that are typically built on the outside of the original or the new building that's going up. And those are temporary structures that are used to support the work crews and the materials to aid in that construction or maintenance or repair. So they explain that this biofilm is more like a scaffolding than an actual barrier. So this scaffolding allows small molecules in the hair, yet it's semi-permeable. Permeable meaning it allows water to pass through. So now that we understand how they both work, let's talk about the other juicy deets. So first and foremost, we can already see a size difference. So Olaplex number 3 is 100 milliliters, 3.3 fluid ounces. Curlsmith Bond Salve is 237 milliliters or 8 fluid ounces. Olaplex is $28, Curlsmith is $29. Both are silicone-free, vegan, cruelty-free, curly girl friendly, and work on all hair types. So something that's also really important to note and to clear up some misconceptions is that neither are a traditional protein treatment. A typical protein treatment has hydrolyzed proteins that temporarily strengthen the proteins of the hair. Proteins within those products are temporary because they do tend to wash away over time, which is why people tend to do regular protein treatments. A protein treatment is kind of like using duct tape to fix a leaky valve. You might stop the leak temporarily, but eventually it's gonna come gushing through, versus a bond builder would be more like just fixing the leaky pipe. While neither of these are a protein treatment, Curlsmith Bond Curl does contain proteins, but they are different from the proteins that you would see in a hard protein treatment, as these proteins are not hydrolyzed and they are designed to repair, fix the pipe, versus just strengthen, duct tape on the pipe. All right, so now we know what they are, what they do, and how they do it. Let's see these bad babies in action. So both need to be applied to damp hair. So I'm going to lightly dampen. My hair's like, thank you. We're going to start with Olaplex. Olaplex is a decently loose but thick consistency. It's not watery. See? My hair has not been detangled, so I'm also lightly detangling as I go through. I personally like my hair to feel pretty saturated with the product. Be a downside because it then runs out quick. So hair is pretty saturated. I'm just going to twist that. Next up, we've got the Bond Curl Salve. Smells so good. This is a little bit looser of a consistency, almost like more of a sticky consistency. Oh, you can see a little bit more movement. Look at that little tail when I lift it up. So definitely more sticky texture. The funny thing about this is although it's not a conditioner, it has a little bit more slip. I mean, I got Olaplex through my hair pretty easily. This almost has the feeling of like a light watery conditioner as it's going into your hair. Just gonna twist. Olaplex advises to leave on for a minimum of 10 minutes, whereas Curlsmith advises to leave on for a minimum of 15, but no longer than an hour. So I'm gonna leave these on for about 20 minutes, because I'm edgy, just kidding. Then I will wash, condition, and I will see you on the flip side. And we are back with no stylers in the hair. Olaplex number 3 is on this side. Curlsmith Bond Curl is on this side. Although these curls are about the same length, this one always bounces up more. This one does not. That is consistent throughout my entire life, but the bond treatments are having no effect on that. In general, you can't really see much of a difference on either side. There is one fairly obvious tell for me personally, and the reason this is an obvious tell is because I've used Olaplex for a very long time. Since I've started using the Curlsmith Bond Curl, I've noticed a difference, and that difference is in my gray hairs. If you've been with me for a while, you know this section especially, my grays drive me bonkers. Much of them will stick pretty much straight. They won't gather with the curl. It's just been kind of a headache, especially as this is one of the areas that is the most dense with grays. Good styling techniques can get some bounce into those grays, but in general, I haven't seen a big difference. Since I started using Bond Curl, I started noticing that these areas are actually curling up more. This is one that tends to always be pretty much stick straight without a lot of manipulation. I don't know that I've ever seen a ringlet in this little clump. Like, look at this hugging action. I struggle to get that without lots of water and stylers. We've seen no product. I'm going to lightly dampen my hair, add some stylers to give it a little bit more hold, and then we are going to wrap this up with final thoughts. Ugh. Look at all that definition. And hold so that I can extend my wash day way too long again. All right, y'all, let's talk the pros and cons of each. We'll finish up with my recommendations. Olaplex number 3, take-home treatment, Bond Builder. First, let's talk pros. Number 1, it is tried and true, y'all. Another pro is that it is a Bond Builder standalone treatment. So no added protein, no added moisture. It is just going to do the job of bond building. Cons, it doesn't last very long. I personally tend to get about 4-5 uses if I'm lucky out of this, and for $28, that can kind of suck. So I tend to not use this as often as I probably would like to because I don't like that additional expense. And the last con for me with this, Olaplex does often recommend following with a protein and or deep conditioner after use. For me, that has generally been the case, is that I typically need to follow this with a deep conditioner to keep the protein and moisture balanced, and that additional step is not always my favorite. Also, something to keep in mind is that unless your hair hair is severely damaged, bleach damage, chemical treatments, perms, etc., you're generally not going to see the effects of this. It's happening, but you don't necessarily get to see it happening the healthier your hair is. Next up, we have the Curlsmith Bond Curl Rehab Salve. Salve? I'm saying salve. Correct me if I'm wrong. The number one pro, in my opinion, the number one pro, it's rebuilding all three of the bonds. Especially for me, where my hair is not chemically damaged, it's not severely damaged in any way. A disulfide bond treatment on its own, not on a consistent basis, going to benefit me because my hair is generally healthy. Another big pro of this for me was that I have not needed to follow it up with anything other than my normal routine. I have not needed to follow it up at any point with a deep conditioner. It is so far shown to be balanced enough that I can just carry on with my regular routine. Another pro is that it does make hair feel softer, which I really, really liked. A couple of cons. So the first, and I would say biggest, is it's new. One of the downsides of it versus Olaplex, at least for me personally, is that I've used this a handful of times where I have used Olaplex over the course of a few years. Because the bonds are within the cortex of the hair, we're not really getting to see the result. It's something that we're going to have to see over time. Another con is if you are protein sensitive. I tend to be fairly protein sensitive. My hair can get really crispy and really dry really fast with a lot of protein products. And although I have not experienced that with this, and I think that's because it's not the typical hydrolyzed proteins that sit on the hair, it actually penetrates, but I still think that as a consumer, it's something that you may need to explore with to see how that works for you, because it is really going to be a case-by-case basis. You're looking at my hair. For the most part, the only place that I've really genuinely noticed the difference between these two bond builders is in my grays. I've seen the long-term effects. I've seen my hair with and without it. And that's something that I am excited to explore with this. If I continue to get the same results that I'm getting now over time, I'm jumping ship. Sorry, Olaplex. Love ya, but 1, 3, 1, 3. Especially where I don't have any chemical damage. This is hitting all the places that I really needed to hit and reinforcing those disulfide bonds in the process. My recommendations for all of you, if you are considering either or. If you have super damaged hair and you already have Olaplex on hand and you're considering Curlsmith Bond Curl, grab it, try both, see if you also get similar or even better results. If your hair is healthy, this will likely make the most sense for you and it'll save you some pennies in the long run. All right, y'all, that is it for this video. Hope you learned something. Hope this video helped. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. Really helps me and helps support this channel. If you haven't already subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Go slam that subscribe button, hit that bell while you're at it to turn on post notifications so you do not miss a thing. Thank you again, Curlsmith, for partnering with me on this video. I will see all of you next time. Bye!